Hi, this is Erin from Blossy Bee. Welcome to my channel. The plan for this video is to use a pair of tortoise moulds I recently purchased from Timo for the first time. I had a vision of glass and natural stone tortoises that look both ancient and resilient, but somehow fragile too. To achieve this, I used beautifully crystal clear resin and small rocks. I hope you enjoy this. It took a lot of time and a lot of patience, but if you watch through to the end, I hope you'll agree that the results were worthwhile. These are the two moulds. As often is the case, I wish they came in a small, medium, large. To me, this is just a small and a large, but super cute anyway. I noticed immediately though that the way they sat, the shell was not flat and even, and I want to have the shell filled with small natural stone so that it looks like a tortoise's shell. Hopefully that will make sense. So what I did is I just got a couple of little dishes and I filled them with some rice, and this is rice that I can use over and over again with resin projects to even out moulds when I'm pouring them. So these are some beautiful natural rocks from Just Resin, and I'm just loving the colour. This is exactly what I want. There is so much variation in there when you look closely, but the overall effect is very calming, neutral, natural, earthy tones. So just perfect for what I want. I did tip them into the larger tortoise just to make sure that I would have enough. I did have another bag of slightly different coloured stones on standby in case I needed to mix them in as well, but it worked out just perfectly, which is very lucky. Okay, so here I am adding a little bit more rice, and I'm just pressing the mould down until I feel that the shell is completely flat, that I can fill that part and let it cure before I move on to the rest. So just a little bit of tweaking and balancing and, getting down, looking at it at eye level and making sure that it was all okay. Okay, I'm using River Art Resin in Deep Pour, and this is such a beautiful resin. It's a 2-to-1 epoxy resin. It's from an Australian company, and I use my Estoril mixer to mix it up and then carefully by hand make sure that all of the edges are scraped. And it's a really low bubble, or look, it's bubble free for me basically. It's just beautiful, and you've got a really nice working time with it, and I knew this was going to take me a while to make sure that I got all of the little stones in and that they are all coated in resin. And here I've just added a little bit of the clear resin first of all to the mould. I'm tilting it around. I just want to make sure I get that lovely even coat of clear resin over as much of the shell as possible and into all the little cracks, because I'm really relying on this resin to be bubble free because I'm putting in a lot of material. And of course there's going to be air trapped between and around all of these little rocks or stones. So here I've just mixed these in a small cup, and as I said, I've coated them all, and I'm hoping it's looking good so far, but now it's time to move on to the large mould. And I've had the resin mixing blades just sitting in here getting the excess off them. So I've already got a little bit of resin in there, but I add some more just so I can be certain that the whole shell has had a bit of a coat of resin. And now I'm going to be doing exactly the same process. I am not tempted, I may have been, but I'm not tempted to use just a large cup and to sort of dump a whole lot in there straight away. I'm sticking with my plan of using small amounts and getting them settled in, and then letting them, self-level and adjust, and then I'm ready to add in the next little layer. And although this is obviously sped up considerably, I do take my time with this, and I'm checking for bubbles regularly. I'm also starting to move the little stones out to the edges of the shell, because I want to make sure that they fit in with the shell. I don't want any, not meeting the edge or going over the edge. And the whole time as well, due to the nature of this mould, I have to be very careful that the rocks don't start sliding down into the head and the little tail. So it really was a balancing act to do this, and it would be lovely if the moulds came so that someone actually considered this, that you need it to be, if you're going to have the shell one colour or one appearance compared to the rest of the body, yeah, it would be lovely if it was actually already level, but there you go. So I've got those now to exactly where I want, and I'm just showing you here. These are some tortoise temporary tattoos. Now this is a little bit funny because when you start looking at these closely, you realise that they are fairly obviously made with AI prompts, and that's a thing these days, and that some of them are sort of turtle tortoise combos. So I ended up having to show my son, and we were like, does that one have legs? Yes, that's a leg, that's not a flipper. And so I've ended up with 4 that I'm fairly confident are tortoises. However, some of them may have slightly turtley characteristics, but you just can't get good tortoises these days. Anyway, I've got these cute little oval moulds, and I've poured in some of this beautifully clear resin, and I've normally put my temporary tattoos straight down onto the mould and then pour the resin over them. But I wanted to show you a different way of doing it. So this way means that you don't have to do a top coat at the end. Now, after about 24 hours, these are, I was going to say dry. Well, they are dry, but they're also cured, which is the correct term. And what I'm doing now is I'm just peeling off the top layer of the temporary tattoos. This is such a critical step. If you don't do that, when you go into the next step, which is applying water to the back of the tattoo to affect the transfer, your tattoo is just going to transfer or try and transfer onto that clear protective sheet, and it will be a disaster. So as soon as I tried to fit this into the little oval, I realised it was a little bit big. So I've just trimmed the top and the bottom. It's just blank space on the tattoo, so it didn't matter. And now I'm taking a microfiber cloth and just some tap water, and I'm just gently pressing down all over the surface to ensure that I've got a nice even moisture across it. And then you'll just start usually noticing you get a teeny little movement, and that's the indication that it's ready for you to remove that backing paper. So I'll go ahead and do the remaining 3, and these are so pretty, and I'm going to stick with my natural vision. If resin could ever be natural, that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to be using really neutral tones, and these tortoises are all, you know, quite fairly neutral, sort of pale colours anyway, so I think it'll look really pretty. I do give them a dry with a paper towel to get out any excess moisture, and then by the time I get to them again, they're perfectly dry. You cannot risk having any water left on the surface when you come to pour the resin, so make sure they're absolutely dry. So this really tested me, and it's crazy. The reason why, clear resin is so hard to judge the level of. So because this resin is so crystal clear and bubble free, I really was struggling to see how close it was to the top of the mould, and that's why I'm constantly having to readjust it, because I'd look at one of its little, you know, claws and feet and think, oh, that's perfect, and then I'd look over at the other one and I'm like, no, it's not. And so there was a lot of tilting and turning. This part would be so much easier if you were using a tinted resin, because you can really get a much better idea of the levels. You can actually see it up against the edge of the mould. But oh, this took so long. I just did not want to risk it overflowing. I just thought the combination of the resin and the rice would probably be too much for me. And I wanted to make sure also that I didn't have it tilted in the rice in a way that the resin wouldn't sit up to the top. Now, I could have taken them out of the dishes at this stage and just trusted that the supports would have worked. But to be honest, the stones were so heavy, I just thought it would be better to stick with the rice. Okay, so now I'm just adding some sort of a luxurious sheen pearl mica, and I'm also adding in some Jacquard Pearlex powder. It's a mica in interference gold, so really going for that beautiful palette of the creams and the naturals, and it's so pretty. So the 2 mica powders combine to make just this beautiful high luster shimmering sort of pale gold cream blend, and oh, it's just so lovely. Sometimes when you're pouring resin, not that I would, please don't worry about me or put me on a list anywhere, but you know, you think, oh, it's almost edible, you know, the way it sort of comes out. It looks so lovely, and especially, you know, when it's swirling around a little bit. And yes, I'm super happy with these. I didn't mention on the left hand side, I've got a couple of the little display holder moulds, and I did put some clear resin in those. They're a really good little mould to have on the side, and because I want these magnets to be because I want these little pieces to be display pieces, they could be magnets and often are, I want to have these little display stands. So here we are, everything's cured. This resin takes around 24 hours to cure, depending on the weather, of course, and the depth of the pores. And this is the little display stand. I did make a couple, but that's one. So let's have a sneak peek at our little oval pieces. And I love them. They're so pretty. My tortoise/turtle possibly little images. They look so gorgeous. These tattoos are very pretty. I did purchase both the moulds and these temporary tattoos in my last Temu order, and you can watch that. It's just back a couple of videos. I do an unboxing and a making in the same video, and that was for a turtle too. So these are looking super pretty. Both sides. The resin is just gorgeous. It's glossy and perfect. There's no top coat needed, whereas if you do put the temporary tattoos down onto the silicone first, sometimes you do need to put a top coat over, and it's probably good practice to do that as well. Okay, time to see if my vision came to life. So remember, I just really wanted to have this appearance of crystal clear glass and natural stone. I wanted them to be very simple, stylish and elegant and striking. So let's see how we did here. Now these are so easy to demould. I was loving this. Once you get its little cute bottom off, everything else comes off beautifully. And here we go. Oh, I'm just so in love with this little baby tortoise. Everything about it is just perfect. His little clear head, clear legs and clear little tail are just magnificent, and his shell looks ancient and old and just made of the earth. Just so happy with it. So by about now I'm feeling quite good potentially about the next one, but we'll see. The rice has done its job, so that can go back into a container now, ready for the next time I use it. Definitely do not put it back into the eating rice part of your pantry, because that would not be good. And again, this is really beautifully easy to demould. The mould itself is so soft and flexible, so it was a pleasure to work with. And here we go. Look at his little feet and claws. They're so cute. And I just can't stop smiling while I'm looking at him, because he's just so beautiful. It's one of those ones I took him up tonight just after I demoulded and showed my son. I'm like, can you believe I made this? And do you know what he said? He said, it's very chonky. He was holding it, and it's quite heavy. It's actually a really substantial piece, and of course that's because of all the natural stone in there. So look at them. So I definitely feel like I achieved my goal. I've got that crystal clear glass-like resin, and I've got these beautiful ancient looking natural earthy shells. Love them. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. As always, I'm just so grateful that you choose to do that. I love reading your comments and suggestions for how I could improve my craft, or how I could use moulds differently next time. So please feel free to comment. I reply to every single comment, and I'm completely up to date as of this evening, so I'm very excited about that. And now I'll let you have a look at our beautiful tortoises. Just so sparkly and gorgeous. Thank you again. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.